The CEO of Balancer Labs, Fernando Martinelli, was interviewed by the status team on their messaging app. So today, I'll be speaking out the questions and the answers, and just in case if you're not entirely sure what Balancer is, make sure you stick around because they do go into detail about what it is and how it works. So with that being said, let's get into it. So the first question Simona asks Fernando is, how did he get into crypto and how did he start working with Balancer? Fernando says he's the co-founder and CEO of Balancer Labs, the company developing Balancer Protocol. He's a Brazilian control and automation engineer with a master's in robotics and image processing. He's already founded 4 companies prior to B Labs, did an MBA in the Sorbonne University, and worked as a strategy consultant for Bain & Co. in Germany. He was introduced into crypto in early 2013, which is quite early if you ask me, and he had been following Ethereum since its inception. In early 2016, he got in touch with the Maker team and met them all in person in their first gathering in Miami. They had collaborated with research and simulations on automatically updating system parameters to ensure DAI's peg is maintained. Being very active members of the Maker community in its early days is how they got to know Nikolai Mushagin better. Earlier this year, he became Balancer's seed investor, co-founder, and chief architect. So Balancer came to life earlier last year as a project with block science. And over time, they realized that there was potential for it to become an even more important primitive, not only for DeFi or Ethereum, but also for chains that hold tokenized assets. They then split it off from block science and created Balancer Labs. Simona then asks, what is Balancer? Fernando then goes in pretty good detail. It's a liquidity provider and portfolio management tool. Balancer provides a smart contract factory that enables the permissionless creation of new Balancer pools. A Balancer pool is a smart contract that contains 2 or more different types of tokens. It allows anyone to trade any pair of tokens contained in the pool. This way, the pool achieves 2 main goals at once. Number 1, it automatically rebalances the portfolio of tokens it holds. An example, if 80% of the value of the pool is in Maker and 20% is in DAI, regardless of the price of Maker relative to DAI, you'll always have these same proportions of value inside the pool. Number 2, it generates revenue from trading fees to liquidity providers of the pool. Balancer Protocol supports 2 types of Balancer pools, private and shared. Private pools are fully flexible. They allow their creator to change any parameters at any time. For instance, a private pool could start with 15% Maker, 15% wrapped ETH, and 70% DAI with a 0.1% trading fee. The owner can at any time add a new token type, change the weights of existing tokens, or even change the trading fee. However, only the creator of the pool can contribute liquidity to it. Then there are shared pools, and those must have all their parameters defined upon creation and are fixed forever. A shared pool creator does not have any special rights over the pool they created. Anyone can contribute liquidity to shared pools and get pool shares in return. The amount of shares a liquidity provider gets is the same whether they are early liquidity providers or late. There's no bonding curve embedded. But today, they have a new cool type of pool which combines the best of both worlds, the smart pools. He'll talk more about them while he's answering the questions, he says. But already some pretty interesting stuff on how Balancer works. Similar if you're not familiar with Uniswap. Then Arando asks, is there any plan for Balancer Layer 2? Will it use optimistic rollups or ZK rollups? Fernando then answers, we are watching both solutions closely and talking to both teams behind them, but I think the solution we'll use will have to keep composability and also be able to run generic smart contracts so that everything can be brought to the same Layer 2. One big advantage of the ZK rollups is the fast withdrawal times as there is no challenge period. I think this might be a game changer and make many protocols prefer ZK rollups. Simona then asks the first question, what made you decide to have BAL tokens? Fernando then answers, we believe that the most important thing for a protocol to be successful and sustainable is to make the right decisions over time, and this can only be done by a vibrant and engaged community in a decentralized manner. We never wanted to be seen as a VC coin or a project that is only managed by the founders and investors, so token is a great tool to allow for the community to be in charge and also for them to feel staked and take part of the success of the protocol if their decisions as governors turns out to be good. Our DNA came mostly from the early MakerDAO community members, and we are all very much obsessed about decentralizing and having the community be in charge. And by the way, I also agree with that 100%. I know people can be dumb sometimes, but I think giving the power to the people is, a good look. A good look. Question number 2: can we stake status tokens (SNT) to Balancer? Fernando then answers, good question. Any compatible ERC20 token can be added to Balancer liquidity pools. SNT is not an exception and can be included in any Balancer liquidity pool. Unfortunately, we don't have many pools with SNT on Balancer, and hopefully this AMA helps us change this reality. For now, the only pool I could find with SNT is this one with just a bit over $7,200. And then he links, the pool itself in the chat. By the way, I mean, hey, maybe this video will help kind of boost up a Balancer pool with SNT. You never know. For question 3, Simona asks, what are the differences between these 3 pools? Private pools, shared pools, and smart pools. I already answered what private pools and shared pools are, so I'm going to go ahead and just talk about the smart pools. The explanation that Fernando gave for the smart pools. Smart pools are actually a construction of a private pool whose owner is another smart contract that can change that private pool in predictable ways. This controller is also a gateway for external liquidity to be added. So it is the best of both worlds. Anyone can add liquidity. Some smart pools may have whitelists for liquidity pools, which helps in some regulated use cases, but the pools remain flexible. This allows, for example, for the creation of dynamic fee pools. Imagine a pool that charges high fees when the demand for trading is high, think of Black Thursday or something, or low when there is low volatility. This is exactly what Uber does, and this way we can match demand with supply and get a more efficient market. Today, all pools have fixed fees. It's like we only had taxis today, no Uber. An example of a smart pool is Ample. At its core, it's a private pool. Only there is a smart contract that accepts liquidity and funnels it to the private pool and then issues you shares so that you can redeem your liquidity at any moment, just as you would with any shared pool. We have many more on the way, but we have a factory for anyone to be able to create their own smart pool, and the UI for that is almost ready to be launched. Simona then asks, can people contribute to future Balancer work? Fernando responds, absolutely. Anyone can and is actually encouraged to, specifically creating pull requests with suggestions of improvements both to our smart contract but also to our front ends. There are a lot of community contributors that are unaffiliated with Balancer Labs, and their idea is to have more and more of these contributors. So it looks like Balancer is really reaching out to the community on this one, and I really like that. I never realized they were so much of a community-oriented project. It's really cool to see that. Fernando also mentions that they're going to have a grant program so that you can be rewarded, of course with a grant, for some cool work that you do that helps Balancer in any way. And they're actually planning on making a dedicated Gitcoin page, or what I guess Gitcoin page, so that they can see exactly what they're looking for. But otherwise, you can actually go ahead and submit any proposals through their Discord that he links in the chat as well. And he does also mention that there's a lot of work to do to improve the process, but they are a small team, and they really do appreciate any help that does come through. So if you do know how to code or anything like that, I would definitely hit these guys up. Simona then asks, what are your thoughts on the recent boom of yield farming and other DeFi protocols? This is question 4, by the way. Fernando answers, he thinks that the myriad of different forks and copycat projects that just tried to attack other long-standing projects proved that it's not that easy to make money and run away with it. That worked in the beginning, but users and retail token buyers started to realize that it takes a lot of work and dedication to get a sustainable protocol running. Thank God, by the way. In the end, all the liquidity mining programs we see around only make sense if the protocols they are representing are generating real and sustainable value. A good example is Uniswap. Liquidity providers were already a part of Uniswap even without any liquidity mining programs. Uniswap helps liquidity providers manage their portfolios and even makes some interests in exchange for providing liquidity. Of course, there are risks and permanent loss, for example, but Balancer, in his opinion, does this even better as it allows for liquidity providers to be fully in charge of how they want to provide liquidity. If you are bullish on SNT, you can have a pool with a higher weight in SNT than in any other tokens, which keeps you more exposed to SNT more so than the other tokens, but still be a market maker. So essentially what he's saying here is that if you do value, let's say, SNT over the other token that you're providing liquidity for, you can try to make sure that you're always going to end up with a larger amount of SNT in your bag, just in case you want to hodl it and still make interest. which is pretty cool. Again, I didn't even realize that Balancer did that compared to Uniswap. Simona then continues to ask, do you feel like it's affected people's confidence in DeFi in any way? Fernando then answers, he thinks that it made people reflect more before buying any random token or providing liquidity to any random staking contract, which in his opinion is pretty healthy. This is always the case with crazes, like the ICO one in 2017. A lot of people got hurt because they were caught in just FOMO. And I agree with that 100%. Sometimes you got to get burned to really understand that, hey, I can't just throw my money or tokens away in some random contract or whatever. Then we have a random question from the audience called from a user named Untimely Grimy Silkworm Atrocious. He asks, what makes Balancer stand out and survive even after the boom? Fernando then answers that he thinks Balancer has proven to be a serious project with a serious team and a community that is there for the long term, with the proposal for adding a lot of value to the AMM space. They have incredible new stuff coming out with Balancer V2 soon, and he can't wait to tell us more, but what he will say is that there's going to be a lot more gas efficiency and flexibility for all AMM innovations to happen, mainly on top of Balancer rather than opposed to just people forking Balancer off, which is definitely good to hear. Simona then asks for question 5, what are the main key and unique features of Balancer? You've already mentioned a few, mainly focused on the power for the user. Fernando then answers, he would say that the flexibility and focus is that it's a building block for many other projects. Unlike Uniswap, Balancer liquidity pools allows for up to 8 tokens at any arbitrary weights. This opens up a lot of exciting use cases that are not possible with Uniswap's rigid 50-50 pools. For example, a DAO can use Balancer as its treasury manager, making sure that the DAO is not overexposed to any assets if they start increasing in price a lot. It's always rebalancing the pool for the liquidity provider, making it great for projects, funds, or retail investors alike. And then just to add on that, my opinion, I think that's great. They're essentially saying Uniswap has a very rigid, standard where you can only have a liquidity pool with 2 tokens, whereas with Balancer, you can actually have liquidity pools with up to 8 tokens, mixing and matching each other. So that it's a lot more versatile than Uniswap. Simona then asks for question 6. Governance tokens are all of the rage these days. Are there any plans for any type of token release now or possibly in the future? Fernando then answers that they won't release any new token as they believe Balancer governance will always be defined and controlled by BAL token holders. Of course, it is all open source so that anyone can really fork them if they wanted to and create their own token. But he does add at the end here that he does have some questions for Simona and the community. Fernando asks, if there was one thing about Balancer to improve it, what would it be? Well, Simona answers that making it a lot easier for newcomers to learn about Balancer and what they could apply it to / how they could use it to benefit themselves and their community would really add a lot of value. I personally would agree with that. I'm all about making things easier for the general public to understand. And when I say general public, I even mean just general people who are into crypto, right? It's important for people like you and I alike, the general consumers, to know how this stuff works so we can actually use it. Because I had no idea what Balancer was before this. Simona then adds that maybe to achieve, an easy onboarding, that you would use education, maybe designing, again, a beginner onboarding flow for people, but also by, adding a practical element to it. So maybe, actually having people, experiment with the Balancer protocol itself. At least that's what I think Simona was trying to say there. And then with that, Simona thanks Fernando for joining. And mentioning that everyone learned a lot more about Balancer just from having him here. I definitely am one of those people. And then Fernando mentions that it was a great pleasure to have him on. Says to be in touch and to not hesitate to reach out to him on Twitter or Discord. Seems like he is a pretty reachable guy if you do have any questions about the protocol itself. So if you're interested, I would definitely reach out. And that's going to be all for the interview that happened today. Thank you guys for watching. I thought it was a really insightful one. I made a first video with Vitalik. If you haven't seen that one where they interviewed him on the app as well, you can click on that above. But this was very interesting since I didn't know much about Balancer before this. And if you didn't either, then I'm sure you learned a lot as well. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching the video. Shouts out to the status team for reaching out to me and thanking me for the first video. I thought, why not make another one? I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Comment down below. Did you guys learn anything new? Peace.